A very warm evening, everyone. I, Riya Shukla,
And I, Astha Arya,
students of New Delhi Institute of Management, PGDM Batch 2021-23, welcome you all to today's webinar session, wherein top leaders will throw some light on the business management by storytelling. We would like to thank each and every one of you for taking out precious time from your busy schedule to be here with us this evening.
the power of storytelling in communication is universally acknowledged. But today, several companies and new age startups are leveraging stories to make management decisions. Tapping onto this, NDIM's Corporate School Development Department grooms our future business leaders in such a way that they understand and learn innovative means of using stories in corporate decision making and global communications.
NDIM's Corporate Skill Development Department has full-time faculties carrying decades of rich corporate experience. In addition, there are senior defense personnel actively on board and closely working with the institute to achieve perfection. The CST courses are designed in a systematic way in coherence with corporate expectations and start from the first semester and advances through next 3 semesters as campus to corporate program. All semesters successively put together devote 400 dedicated hours on soft skills and build a solid foundation for exceptional employment. Today, as we talk about business management by storytelling, we have invited to the NDIM platform 4 distinguished panelists who are not only accomplished professionals, but also master storytellers in their respective fields. Before we introduce them, allow us to introduce the New Delhi Institute of Management.
Established in 1992 by members and chairman of UPSC, judges of the Supreme Court, Deputy Governor of India's Reserve Bank, Election Commissioner of India, Secretary Industries of the Government of India, and by most renowned academics and business houses of India and USA. NDIM has been declared as the first and only mentor business school of India and the only B school continuously declared best in India 3 years in a row for industry linkages, and under 19 other parameters, including placements by the AICTE, Government of India, and Confederation of Indian Industry. NDIM is the only business school declared best in India by ASSOCHAM, the Associated Chambers of Commerce and Industry, continuously for the last 5 years for placements parameters and as the best in North India. FICCI, the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry, has also declared NDIM as the best in India for excellence in employability through industry engagement. NDIM has been declared best in India for industry linkages and placements simultaneously by all the premier national trade and industry chambers of the country and by AICTE, Government of India. NDIM heads the Asia Center for Global Risk Policy Network with the first of its kind Risk Policy Institute in India. NDIM is preferred choice of top MNCs for training in AI/ML, data science, business analytics, digital marketing, and for Japanese language and job roles in Japan.
Without further ado, let us introduce our eminent panelist for today's webinar. Our first speaker for this evening is Mr. VIVEK ATRAY. Mr. VIVEK ATRAY is a former IAS officer, a TED speaker, author of Finding Success Within, mentor, advisor, and a columnist. He is the chairman of the Yogananda Center for Theology and visiting professor at Shulini University. Founder of Suvichar Think Tank, chairman of Public Relations Council of India, PRCI Chandigarh, empaneled and Speaking Minds International Speakers Bureau, member of the Governor's Advisory Council for Chandigarh, founder of Vibrant Networking Forum, Chandigarh Literary Society, and co-convener of Intact Chandigarh. As Director IT, he was the man behind the Chandigarh IT Park and spearheaded the award-winning eSampark project. He has also held an advisory position with auditing firms like KPMG and PwC, a cricket enthusiast. He has been organizing the annual All India JP ATRAY cricket tournament since 1992. Vivek was an under-19 cricketer and played for the national level CK Naidu Trophy twice.
The second speaker for this evening is Mr. AVIJIT Dutt. Mr. AVIJIT Dutt is a renowned filmmaker, actor, theatre director, and communications consultant. He has been a social activist and interventionist with seminal work in child welfare and consumer affairs. He has acted and directed for theatre and TV and teaches communication to postgraduate students in various universities. His own featurette on child abuse, Akar Bakar, was screened in the Parliament and the Cannes Film Festival 2010 and has been extensively used for advocacy by UNIFEM since then.
The third speaker for today is Mr. Kamalneet Singh, a mindset coach. Kamalneet Singh is a 3-time TED speaker, best known as a chef who dropped his knife and picked up the mic, a professional in practical psychology and a certified NLP practitioner. He has been associated with schools across different capacity. He is the director of Promise, one of India's leading ed training companies in the space of 21st century life skills. He has authored a book on parenting titled The Extraordinary Kids over the last 10 years. His work has impacted more than 50,000 lives ranging from different age groups. He has trained teachers on topics like innovative teaching techniques, classroom management, and addressed thousands of parents annually on conscious parenting.
Our fourth speaker for this evening is Mrs. RITU Singhal. Mrs. RITU Singhal is a managing director of Praglan Infrastructure Private Limited, a pioneer of real estate business in the region and winner Nippon Leatherette Private that manufactures textiles. She is also a certified coach, teacher, trainer, and speaker with the John Maxwell team. She has counseled and coached more than 15,000 people in about 14 countries like USA, Australia, UK, Nigeria, apart from India. Mrs. Ritu has also authored a book named A Story Can Change Your Life. Besides managing day-to-day operations of group of companies, she dedicates her time for the upliftment of the society through her active participation in the social development and community service programs.
Allow me to introduce today's host, Dr. Vishwa Mohan Bansal. Dr. V.M. Bansal, Chairman, New Delhi Institute of Management, is a former civil servant and has been the youngest and the longest serving Secretary, Commissioner, Principal Commissioner, and Director of India's biggest statutory urban body, DDA, Government of India, for 28 years. He has headed several public sector undertakings and was advisor to the Lieutenant Governor of Delhi at the time of Commonwealth Games 2010. Over to Chairman, sir.
Thank you, Riya Shukla, and thank you, Astha. Thank you, Professor Tina. It's a pleasure and honor hosting such a galaxy of, I say, renowned, not only speakers, personalities of the country. Okay. And of course, I know for sure that it is their art of storytelling. It is their art of posting on the social media that has made them stand out in such a big crowd. So it's a very big honor and pleasure. And we will now try to learn from them. In fact, all of us remember that storytelling has been a part of us from our parents, from our grandparents, when we used to go to sleep. So those were the stories which try to build our character over the coming years. We remember the storytelling by Chhatrapati Shivaji's mother, which we have all heard in the history, read in the history, that how she shaped his character in the coming years. So today this has taken a formal name and how well it is being applied in the management field. In fact, at NDIM, we have been trying to adopt all the new things, and I'm proud to say that Professor AVIJIT continues to be part of the NDIM mentoring team. He has been teaching at NDIM for more than 6 or 7 years. Same is Vivek with all of them, and it's an honor that our students are once again connecting with you and all of the other great dignitaries. And let's start with Vivek, who has been a younger colleague, as I mentioned, as a very bright colleague in the civil services, very bright friend from the college that we passed out. Yes, again, he's been much younger and he established a big name for himself in this field. So Vivek, we would now like to learn from you. I remember when you left the civil service, when you were deciding to leave the civil service, and we were discussing as to how the career will shape for you. Okay, I remember that was a very trying time when you came to my house and we were discussing that. Okay, but since I had also passed through not that, but a similar kind of an exercise when I left the Punjab cadre and then ultimately had to shift to an autonomous body. I had passed through not exactly, but similar challenges in life. So by now, I'm sure you have been very, very happy person. So kindly take the stage and let us know a couple of stories in your life that you would like to take to rest of the country, the students, the professors, the corporate world who are present with us right now. Vivek.
Thank you, Dr. V.M. Bansal, IAS. Very nice to meet you again, sir. And you're the chairman of the New Delhi Institute of Management, NDIM. Thank you for according this warm welcome and inviting me to speak in a galaxy of speakers. My friends RITU ji and KAMALNEET ji are also with us, and it's a pleasure to see them again. And it's a pleasure to meet Mr. AVIJIT Dutt, who is a very renowned personality. And already I'm inspired seeing his very calm and smiling face. He looks very collected and very wise, if I may say so, sir. And the two young ladies who spoke so well and introduced us so glowingly, very my thanks to them. Also to Dr. Abha and Dr. Tina and Professor Praveen and Nikhil, who have been in touch off and on. So my jumping into the subject, and thank you for the kind words, Dr. Bansal. I am going to say that just two little stories to start with. We'll follow a format where we don't speak too long, that has been discussed. So each of us will pitch in and then we'll pitch in again once more. I'd like to just briefly mention that my own story has been a little up and down, and everybody's goes through ups and downs. And once I get that out of the way, then I'll come up with a more interesting story of somebody called Raj, who I will talk about. So mine has been that I wanted to be a cricketer, and I was trying to play at the top level. When I came to the age of about 18 and I graduated from school, then my father told me, better go for engineering. Cricket is not giving you perhaps the likely results that should be expected at this stage. So I was playing Sikh-and-I-Do twice, which was high level enough, but I was not playing for India yet or looking like playing for India. And he was right. I went for engineering, where cricket continued, but it was a backseat. And engineering is something which you can do without much persuasion or difficulty. Once you get into the college, you are going to pass out as an engineer, unless you are a totally reckless and chaotic in your behavior and conduct, which I did. And I enjoyed it while I was there in Kurukshetra, which is a very prestigious college, although I was recruited as a guest student to the Haryana Engineering College at that time. But later, my father passed away, and he was a civil servant. He was a police officer, actually. And so he became my idol. And when he passed away, I was offered a job in the civil services of the state. And then I was promoted long later to the IAS. So a long career in the service, which saw me doing various things, which earned some kind of name. And I realized that this name needs to be capitalized upon for the society, because people listen to IAS officers, I found. And that's a joke, actually. But when we speak, people take note that this guy is saying something. Okay, at least your first few lines will be heard very carefully. After that, you better be a good speaker, otherwise people stop listening. And I found that I have an art and a knack of storytelling, of anecdotal relating, and I also became a popular speaker at the TEDx level twice and Josh Talks, etc. while I was in the IAS. After resigning, I have multiplied my role as a speaker and advisor and visiting professor. And as Dr. Bansal rightly said, that was the time we met to discuss this phase. And he himself had done so earlier. Now I did so. That in a nutshell is what I did. And that shows that life can be not predictable, but we should basically be ready with our basics. So if you have your basics right and you have some qualities of head and heart, you can probably succeed anywhere. I'll be very, I won't say that if I had been a Ukrainian colonel at this point of time, I would have succeeded in stopping the Russian forces. But qualities of head and heart will take you a long way in being successful, come what may, wherever you are. And life is unpredictable. Life is not going according to plan. But if we have our little bit of qualities in order, we can handle and tackle anything. Human beings can be very resilient, very strong. It is a matter of winning the battle of the mind. Now, a more interesting story of Rajan Arora or Raj. And I'm telling you this without his permission since he is my protege in a way. So I was director of information technology of Chandigarh. And a young man comes to me and we had set up something called SPIC, which was Society for Promotion of IT in Chandigarh. And I was the CEO. So he says, sir, I am a data entry operator, come programmer, and can you please give me a job? Out of the blue. We were incidentally looking for someone like that. And at that time, the CEOs of IT societies of the government also could recruit people straight away without going through a process. No, you can't do it. But at that time, I saw his qualifications, saw his merit, and made him work for a while without recruiting, and we found him to be good. We gave him a job about 6,500 rupees salary, I believe. And this was in the year 2004 or 5, about 18 years ago. I must tell you that this boy worked so hard. And after 3 years, he tells me he wants to set up his company. And he started something very small, some data entry services, etc. I have watched his journey since. Today, he is the CEO of what is at least a 50 crore company, if not 75 crore company in technology. He employs about 150 to 200 people. He talks and walks like a CEO. He has a personality. He has confidence. He has calmness. He has innovation. So he is into virtual reality and gadgets which help even children play games on the internet and computers. And he's doing very well. And when I see him, and he often comes up to me and says, so you gave me my first job. And there was a time when he needed an advance salary of a month for some personal reason. I think his sister was getting engaged or something, which is not done in the government. But then I also was like that. And I said, yeah, I must help him. Gave him a loan of 1 month's extra salary or 2 months. He appreciates that so much today. So what I find in Raj or Rajan is that he has not forgotten his roots. He has stayed with his roots. He has stayed grounded. He has stayed humble, and he has soared high. So one learning from there, and stories are about learning. So whenever I or Ritu or KAMALNEET or AVIJIT we speak, or Vishwamohanji we speak from the heart, and we tell these stories with a message for the youth, a learning for the youth. The story in this case is that however high you may go, you remain grounded and you don't forget the people who helped you. There is a saying that be nice to people on the way up because you'll meet the same people on the way down. The ladder of success and failure is quite narrow. You meet the same people when your things are not doing well also. If you remember them when you are in power, and if you give them that respect when you are flying high, then they will always look up to you and they will always help you. And lastly, in this first installment that I'm speaking about, is the need to know that goodwill matters more than anything else. How much money you make, or power you have, or famous you are, what matters is the goodwill that you have garnered and earned and gained over the years, so that by being helpful to others, by being grounded, by being humble, by being whatever you do. And then you realize that that goodwill comes back to you. And you don't try to earn that goodwill for any reason that you want that help later. When you help someone who cannot help you, you know that this person can never be of any help to you. But you go out of the way to help that person, then the universe conspires to help you also. So I think that much is what I'd like to say at this time, sir. And over to you, and I'll come up with some other stories later.
Thank you, Vivek. Thank you. You always have been very sensitive and very emotional about this, and that is what made you jump into a new I say phenomena altogether at such a young age. And I've been seeing how you have been doing. I know things would never be easy when you leave such a secure service, when you leave it, when you such a big name, and you again start from a zero, again start from a scratch. So only tremendous amount of I say strength within only takes you to that kind of a role. So it's a pleasure. We'll have you back again. And Professor, I will call you Professor AVIJIT because you have been teaching at various places. You have been teaching with us. You're one of the say sought after or fondest professors with our students all these years. People also know you of your big roles in movies. It may be Piku working with Amitabh Bachchan. At times we rarely get time to sit with Professor AVIJIT because he's traveling most of the time. But yes, couple of things he mentioned, I still remember them. So I can't tell you what exactly you would say, but you have tremendous information, even inside of the Bollywood, which everybody is there very, very keenly listening to. So over to you, Professor AVIJIT. Let's learn from you once again with all the students and all the crowd present over here.
Thank you very much, sir. Great pleasure to be here and completely humbled as always. Let's just think of where did language start from? If history is to be believed, it is from anywhere close to 2 million years to 50,000 years. Let us consider 50,000 years as the beginning of language. We got to a cave in the night, and this is after fire has been discovered. And around the fire are seated people who are roasting food and eating it. But there is one person who sits at a bit of a distance away from them, who is accumulating natural dyes. And soon after, when everyone else has retired, this man begins his work on the rock face. This is not a fantasy story. This is born evidence too in the caves of Bhimbetka, 40 kilometers from Bhopal. And of the only few caves that have been excavated, we have found a rich body of paintings that tell us stories. And these stories are almost like saying, this is how the hunt went. This is who led the hunt. And these are the people who supported it. And these are the animals that they got. If I take this to be the beginning of stories, which would be anywhere between 2 million and 50,000 years, which is also the beginning of speech, then we realize that we are hardwired to receive stories. Oftentimes we are told that unless there is a PPT, oh God, we have nothing in hand. We must realize that that is only what, 87, Mr. Bill Gates was showing us what a PPT is all about. And surprisingly, he began with a story. His story was that there was this amazing thing called Microsoft Suite, which had in it PPT and Word, but nothing was there with him. He had nothing. It was just a story that he had based it all on. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are hardwired to receive stories. And it is these stories that move us forward. I'll take recourse to one small story to kind of illustrate how my life has been led. I was working as a professional with a mobile company. And I was in technology and marketing. And we were to go into Manila. Philippines is rocked by cyclones and storms. And when it does happen, there's mayhem and chaos on the ground. And oftentimes, there is total outage and there's no electricity whatsoever. So, in times of disaster, people don't have a mobile phone because the mobile phone requires charging. So we felt that if we wanted to go into Philippines, we must build a story. And the story was that the mobile phone would use a AAA battery cell. And we made it and we took it to the Philippines, and it is used even today to power the mobile when people are in a disaster area and they can call back. This little story was reported in Wall Street Journal, and it soon gave us a reputation of innovations that could be made based on people's usage. And this also led us to being invited by Mr. Ratan Tata to be a part of the $100 laptop movement. More about that later, so I just thought that I'll start off with the beginning story and then we'll talk later.
No, thank you so much. You've opened so many new vistas, so many new doors and so many new directions to all of us.
Thank you, sir.
So thank you so very much, and we need more and more and more to be hearing from you. Thank you so much. KAMALNEET, you are there now. So KAMALNEET, again, we will touch his personal aspects little later, or maybe now, it's up to him. So he has been a great storyteller, a very sought after storyteller. And KAMALNEET, entirely up to you. Before I try to probe it further, you please go ahead.
Sure. Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. Indeed, a pleasure to be here. And I'm thankful to NDIM and the entire team and my fellow speakers. Indeed, a privilege to be, sharing stories with all of you. I think while we were young, I believe we are still young, by the way, when we were in school days. So stories were an integral part of the daily routine, something or the other happening during the day. And with so much from school stories that we would take back home and share with our parents or our friends. Can you show me a hand if you shared any story from school days with your parents, the good, bad, and the ugly ones? I'm sure everybody had. So for me, while everybody cherished the school days, for me it was slightly tough, I would say. And I would want to correlate, while we're talking about business management and storytelling, I would also want to correlate this with one of the instances and one of the practices that I follow. When any of my, I run a training company, and any of my team member walks in with a problem, I have a standard statement that I would make, which is a quote that I borrowed from the late great Jim Rohn. And he had a quote which says that, for things to change, we have to change. For things to change, we have to change. So every time my team member walks in with a problem, and I say that, for things to change, and they're thinking in their head, कि ये इंसान जो है ना, ये सीधा बात हमारे shoulder पे ही डाल देगा, you know. For things to change, we got to change, and that has really helped in you know, kind of the whole, my team members becoming you know, big time problem solvers. And a lot of times before they step into my cabin and think of asking me anything, they know कि अंदर जाके पहली बात ही यही होनी है for things to change. So they've stopped coming in, and they started kind of figuring out solutions on their own. And I'll tell you why I say this, and this is very close to me. So born and brought up in Delhi in a joint family and a giant family, and I'm sure some of you would have had joint and giant families. And as a child, I had issues with speaking. I was low on confidence, had inferiority complex issues, knew the answers, and I think some of you can relate. You know, the teacher is asking something, you're sitting in the class, you know the answer, but you are thinking, should I not? You know, should I not? So I was kind of one of them, and because of issues with sharing and speaking, a lot of times I knew the answer, but I would sit at one corner at the back, and my teacher is asking something, and I'm thinking, should I? What if I get stuck? You know, what if I'm not able to give the answer? You know, so I could, you know, in advance, you know, in my head, I would fast forward the whole thing, and I would know that if I'm not able to deliver, I'm hearing these giggles around me already, because that happened a lot of times. So before any participation, I would see those giggles happening, and that would stop me from sharing anything. So grew up like that, and then I was told, given my challenges with speaking and public dealings, and I was told to take up a back-end job. And as you know, as contradictory it may sound, I decided to take up a back-end job. And one of my mentors told me, you know, my teachers, that, you know, take up a back-end job, and if you love food, this will be a good job for you. So I asked her, Madam, what do you want me to take up? And she said, why don't you do hotel management and become a chef, maybe, you know, begin as a cook and then eventually become a chef. And I said, I think that's something that is doable, though I did not want to become one. And I landed up at IHM Bangalore and did 3 years of hotel management. And my first job was in a you know, hotel pantry. And my head chef early on realized that he's a docile guy, ज़्यादा बोलता नहीं है, ज़्यादा परेशान भी नहीं करेगा. So let him give the, you know, let's give him the work that nobody else wants to do. Now you see, ये हमारे साथ भी होता है, you know, we kind of give the work to somebody who we know wouldn't deny, and I wouldn't really deny things, and he would give me work which I kind of, you know, did not really like it. And I'll tell you what that work was. I would be given you know, onion, if you pyaz ki bori, you know, sacks of onions to chop, slice and dice, and I'm doing that. And when you do that, you have you know, tears rolling down your you know, cheeks, and not because you're crying, but because of the sulfur present in the onions. Kitne logon ne wo feel kiya, you know? I think only those people who have cut onions can say that, right? Otherwise it's passively coming if somebody else is doing it in the kitchen. So that would happen. And then that's when, you know, I kind of realized that I'm doing some work which is you know, which is not to my liking. I'm hiding in a kitchen pantry just because I was told that I need to be at the back end. And I borrowed that advice very seriously. And I started believing that I always have to be in the back end. I don't have to be in the forefront. And it so happened that when realization strikes you, it strikes you very hard. And it does, and it dawned upon me that, you know, much like me, there are many kids across the, you know, country who are dealing with issues that doesn't get addressed, you know, because it's easier to expect somebody to change, you know, किसी और को बदल दो, you know, customer ठीक नहीं है, you know, ये ठीक नहीं है, वो ठीक नहीं है. It's very hard to take it on your shoulders to actually come to terms with the fact that nobody else but you need to change, you know. So similarly in business and in life, you will see that change has to happen within us. And I decided that I'm going to go back to my own school. So that's when I shifted gears and I got into training, coaching, psychology, and I started my journey with my own school kids, and 10 years of a journey, and have addressed a lot of people across different. It's a privilege to have addressed, teachers, parents, and kids. And I want to connect this to the current business situation wherein anybody walks in. My opening statement, when they walk in with a problem, my opening statement is that for things to change, we got to change. So like if a customer is dealing with some issue, if a customer is complaining, it's very easy to say, ye wala customer na bekar hai hai. He's a very demanding customer. We have seen that, right? And but essentially, it's us as a company, it's we as a human being, it's we as resources in a company or human beings. When we change, not only our business shifts, it also adds a lot of values to our customer, to our own team members, to everybody around. So my conclusion with the story is that for things to change, we got to change. Thank you. And I'll probably come back with more stories.
No, thank you so much, Kamal. Yes, a very sound and very soft or very strong, whatever you say, message, very meaningful message.
Thank you.
That basically the other person we have always to take, especially in the businesses, other person is not only right, other person is teaching us something to improve our service or to improve our product, right, or to improve something. They're giving us very valuable feedback. Right. And that's why we have seen that biggest of the industrialists or biggest people, they come to the academia, they talk to the next generation, yes, who would raise maybe very silly questions or maybe unexpected questions. And that leads to a lot of innovation by the industry tomorrow. So that's something.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've experienced that. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, KAMALNEET. And I know RITU has a very strong, I would say, story to tell us. And obviously, a story how despite all that story, despite all those odds, she has been such a successful management professional. So we're talking of how to get in, be a success in management profession, how you can be on your own while doing your own setups or while you're working for somebody. These learnings, these principles apply at all forums. It's not essential that you have to be on your own and then only they are useful. Primarily, these learnings help you at every stage of life, whatever you're doing, wherever you're doing. So, Ms. Ritu, over to you, please.
Yeah, thank you so much for such an opportunity and speaking with Vivekji, Charanji, and AVIJIT. It's so wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Bansal. So, story, this word itself is so close to my heart, as my book also is A Story Can Change Your Life. So I believe a good story, always helps us to see the things in some different way. What we could never perceive, but we could never think it's possible. So when we hear a story, it gets really imprinted on our hearts. So it's a very wonderful subject you've chosen. So I'll directly go to some stories which will, everybody can see. The theme of my stories would be that there is always a solution. And we can transform any situation, what we think, in India, there is corruption. In India, we cannot fight Chinese competition. Whenever we go through some crisis, so maybe we are disempowered. So I like to touch upon 3 points, which are 3 C's. But before that, I like to share a little bit about my life, why these stories are relevant. So, what you shared about me was present, but what was behind this, I like to just touch it, that I'm coming from a background till 2007, I was a housewife. So in 2007, unfortunately, my husband committed suicide and situation was very tough. There were 60 crore loans, hundreds of court cases. So in middle of that, when I started working and the day it happened, the very day my husband told that you are a sadhvi, tumhe nahi samajh aayega. So I'm just trying to tell that how even coming from that background, how things could be dealt with basic common sense that we all can do. That's what I'm trying to touch upon, that there is solution. So first thing which I faced was that was competition with China, which is very, very relevant topic for anybody. So when I understood the whole scenario, I was told that, he was told that the industry which you have chosen, technical textile, is fiasco because there are 40,000 containers come from China. And you can never compete with China. The kind of things, they make, that the prices they sell, it's almost impossible. And I remember in 2007, December, I happened to go, just after 7-8 months of that incident, I happened to go to a gathering where all the industrialists, my competitors, were standing. There were big shots here. So I was like a poor widow standing there. So everybody was trying to tell me that it's not a good industry, so you shouldn't even try, you should sell it. So what you will do is selling 300 meters, 500 meters, we make technical textiles. And I was speechless because I had no clue what I'm into it. And so I simply, just because I was tired of listening those things. So ultimately I told them, I said, it's all right. We have already invested so much into it. So even if I invest little more, either the whole amount will come out of it, or if I'm already losing some X, and if it will X plus 1, it doesn't matter. So let me try. So just I said that thing, and I just moved out of that place. And then now, but what to do? From where to start? Because from right, left, and center, I was getting a feeling it's impossible. So then one of my friends, I'm really grateful to that friend, who told me that you must go to China. And just see by yourself. I told him, I don't have money. How to go? I can't spend 1 lakh rupees. He said, you're not understanding. Already so much is invested. So even if you invest 1 lakh more, it's fine. It's worth. So you should go even by borrowing that 1 lakh from someone. So then I visited China, and there was an exhibition going on. I went to that stall. I touched one leather hanging there. It was synthetic leather. As I touched it, the Chinese person told, no, not for India, not for India. Sorry? I was shocked. I said, what does it mean? Not for India. So then I got to know that what India is buying is very, very cheap products, economical. So that's why these sort of products, they don't come to India. Because nobody even tries to get traders, they don't deal with it. So then I thought, let me try working on those products which otherwise are not coming to India. So I started learning, going to their labs, working on raw materials, costing, checking. Then as a policy, we decided that there were two things, either we go slow or we go, by just making cheap products and selling it in the market. Then we decided we'll go slow. We'll just go by good products. And maybe, it will take OEMs to understand or people to understand. But as slowly and steadily understanding that how we can only deal with such products which China is not interested in selling to India. And no Indian is interested to buy from China. So when we started working on that, so ultimately we became kind of competitive in all those products. And today those products are very well accepted even in Europe. They prefer our products. So this is one thing which I realized that after understanding everything. So what is my learning out of it? That when we go deep down to understand, that what can be done, we can always find a solution. It's very easy to say on surface level, oh, it's tough, there's competition, China is like this, very, very easy. But when we try to understand, going deep into the root, so we can always find solution. So another one more incident I like to narrate is about corruption. So it's again, I've been hearing in India, there's corruption, everybody is corrupt. So I feel there are wonderful officers, wonderful people, those who try to understand, but it's only that we don't make that kind of effort. It's very easy to give up, easy to get to that yes, people are corrupt. So there was, again in the beginning only what happened that one of the director, he told me that some officer is saying that you have to pay certain taxes which are due for quite some time, and which is to the tune of certain crores. So I was already in middle of a lot of situations, so I did not understand anything. So I told him I would like to meet the officer. The officer said, "What will I do by meeting a lady?" So I was told this. So I said, tell him that you're not meeting a lady, you're meeting an MD. So, and then he happened to, I happened to meet him. So when I met him, by the time I had studied what was due, what it was, I studied the Bear Act about the tax. So I got all the information. So when he came, so I told him, I said, how are you going to help us? So I was told by my director that is asking for 50% of what was due. So I said, how are you going to help me? He said, I will do away with your file. So I'm here for 4 years on this, then I'm retiring. So 4 years, nobody will ask you. I said, what will you do with my buildings which are standing and everybody can see? You can't hide them. He said, no, 4 years, nobody can touch you. I said, then what will happen after 4 years? He said, after 4 years, you will earn a lot of money, whatever I'm helping you right now. So I got up from my seat. I said, sir, please, you come to my seat. You make that money. I will like to take up your part. I said, it's not that easy. What you're saying. So he got little, he said, no, please. So then I told him, I said, see, I can go to court. You're asking me some taxes which are retrospective. Court will also give me 4 years. And genuinely, I take that time. Otherwise, they will say, put penalty, they will put interest on that. They'll say, I have hidden all those facts. So I can genuinely take. And trust me, when I had that conversation with him, he genuinely became my friend. And we were really friends forever. So what I see in that how we come to, how we genuinely believe, how we start judging people without making an effort that what is actually behind anything. So maybe somebody else was behind this, what was being told that 50% is demanded. Maybe nobody thought I can get into it and I can try finding out. So how we all can really change Indian scenario by really genuinely working, genuinely talking, genuinely having dialogue with people. This is my learning and my experience of life. Yeah. Thank you.
Ritu, this has been very impactful. I must say that we can't imagine a scene like that. In that state, you're taking the challenge. Obviously, one would collapse, one would just not come out of that. Okay, and taking a challenge or getting into new territory or getting into entirely new country, thinking entirely new things. It would have been, it's even when you would be thinking back, you must be, shuddering as to how it happened with you. It happened at that time, you got that courage, or maybe the God was with you. God, nobody should ever be doing it again or made to do it again. I'm sure if you think of it, you'll not be able to do it again. You have done it through such a sheer courage and exemplary, I would say. Yeah. So that's fantastic. We all have to learn a lot that not only could you clear all those debts, you're living happily, you made a name for yourself, you become an example for the whole world, and you become an example for the, I would say, the women power, not only for the women power, but for everybody. So it's really remarkable of you. Thank you so much. And we'll come back to you, try to learn more from you as to how do you handle your teams. We'll just check with you how you groom, how you handle your team to be, if not as good, but a part of your managerial or your leadership skills, how you're imparting in them. So we'll come back to you and learn more about that. And I come back to my friend Vivek. Vivek, yes, life, as you already mentioned, is full of challenges. Very, very big crisis happening, full of crisis happening all the time, which at times nobody knows, and even our family doesn't know, because we do not want to share or tell them. Okay, so would you like to come out with some such real life stories, maybe your own, maybe of your friends, maybe those who you feel would make a difference to the management graduates and to the people, all the people who are present with us today.
Yes, sure, sir. I'm very fascinated by the stories and the inputs of my fellow speakers, all of them outstanding in their own way. And this is a very high level webinar with a lot of participation. And I'm sure that all of us can learn from each other and stay connected in this very connected world. We need not let the learnings of this webinar dissipate into the thin air. Somebody, even if they take away, young students takes away even an iota of what is being shared here and keeps that in his or her heart is more important than anything else. I often say, being from a government background, that the minutes are more important than the meeting, and the follow-up is even more important than the minutes. So that is what matters in all our discussions. I'll quickly talk about two stories which will highlight what I want to say. You rightly mentioned the challenges part, and Ritu ji has especially come up with a challenge which can't even be called a challenge. Her story is just astounding. But I would like to talk about how you can remain focused despite a challenge. And of course, right now the whole world is facing a challenge. But a story which I know of, which I often relate in my talks, is of a young boy. And this boy was in Japan, and he lost one arm. In fact, he had only one arm, and he was very desolate, very, used to go to school, but he knew that he couldn't do much in life with one arm in an accident. And he wanted to learn judo. So he found some boys learning judo from a judo master. He goes to the judo master and says, "Sir, can you teach me judo?" The judo master looks at him with one arm. I mean, no greater challenge than having such a disability. He says, "I can teach you only one move. And that one move is all I can teach you." So for 6 months, he practices that one move which the guru has taught him. And after 6 months, the teacher says, "Okay, now you can participate in a tournament." So they go to this judo tournament, and he beats the first boy he meets, and then he beats the second one also with one move only. Then the semi-final is there, and there's a boy much bigger than him, which not expected to win. But somehow with that one move, he manages to pin down that boy and beats him also and reaches the final, where the champion of the last 2-3 years is there, and there is no chance. So the guru tells him, "Well done, and you have reached this far. It's amazing. You have done very well." But this boy is very determined, despite his disability. And though that boy is much bigger in the final, he starts beating him hollow. Somehow, in the very last minute, he pins down that bigger guy with that one move, and that person is not able to extricate himself, and he wins the final also. So they're on the way back after the prize distribution with the trophy, and this guru is very pleased, and the boy is very pleased. Now the boy says, "Sir, now will you teach me one more move?" He says, "You don't need any other move." He says, "This is the only move in judo where that person can only extricate himself if he pins down your other arm, and you don't have another arm. They cannot pin you down. So you cannot lose. If you are good at this one move, you will never lose." And that, to me, is a very inspiring story of how you convert a disaster into success. Now, this is about staying focused and determined in a very, very excruciating situation. What are we typically? Let me tell you a couple of stories from what normally happens. Normally, we forget where our keys are, we forget where the mobile is, we forget where our wallet is, we forget what is happening to us today, we forget meetings also at times. And it is because our minds are forever distracted. So the challenge of CEOs, the challenge of entrepreneurs, the challenge of young professionals is not so much the work before them, but their own minds and the distractions of the era. And when I meet the youth, their major challenge is also Instagram, because they live in Instagram, they live in the social media, and they also see people like Hrithik Roshan or Jacqueline Fernandez, who are perfect in every way on Instagram. At least they may have their moments of imperfection in real life, but the point is that these kids, they are besotted to that, and they are so distracted by that, and they feel low at times. So what needs to be done? is to learn from these people who are successful and concentrate on the present. It is said that the present is a present. It is a gift. The present moment is the only moment where we can accomplish something. And our minds are typically in the future or the past. So one little story that I'd like to talk about is from distraction and how we need to not be distracted. So this lady misses her flight and she's to reach Bombay from Delhi, and the next flight is quite delayed. She's very upset. She calls up Bombay and says, I'm sorry, I'm getting late. And she buys a packet of cookies and sits down to read something. There is a man sitting at the airport next to her who picks up the packet of biscuits and starts eating the biscuits. Now this lady is already upset, and she feels even more so when this man is picking up her biscuits. So just to prove her ownership, she picks up the next biscuit and eats it. But this person is very adamant, or is very bold or deep, as they say. He picks up the third one and eats it. Now she's boiling, seething from within, but she doesn't allow this to, doesn't say anything, picks up another biscuit and eats it. He picks up the next one, she picks up the next one. Very soon the packet is almost finished one by one. The last one is there and the man picks it up and breaks it into two and gives her half and eats half of it. So this person, this lady, is so angry with this man, but doesn't want to say anything. And the flight is announced and she gets up and opens her bag to take out the boarding pass, and the packet of biscuits is in her bag. She had been eating his biscuits. And see where her concentration was because of the disturbance or whatever. Now you reverse the situation. And the man knows that it is his packet and she is eating. But he never, Ritu ma'am, it could have been a man this way and a lady the other way. That is not the point. The point is that we are so distracted by various things that we do not concentrate enough. And this happens to absent-minded people, and I am one of them. I often lose my car keys, not car keys actually, but I lose my parchi, the parking slip. Often it has happened. I don't remember where I keep it. Or there's something in my pocket which I think I just put it away on absent-mindedly. So I think we really need to improve our concentration to be successful in business, in any venture, and focus on what we are doing at this very moment, rather than allowing ourselves to go into the future, the past, the next task, the next meeting, the next day, the next visit, the next travel. I think all of us will perform much better. And that is something which everybody can learn from these two stories. One about focus despite the challenge, the other about being distracted when we should not. These were the thoughts I wanted to share. One more point quickly is that all of us need to bring out, and youngsters especially, bring out that creativity within you. Don't be a dullard, a routine kind of person who is like, okay, I did this, I got 99 marks. Life is not about marks. Life is about making a mark. We need to make a mark. Please make a mark in whatever way you can and go forward. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Vivek. Very, very useful. Big learning for me, big learning, I'm sure, for all the people present with us right now. Thank you so much. And one feels that now, of course, online has made things easy. Earlier, we were always planning that how to have you from Chandigarh to speak to our students every third day.
Yeah.
But now, since online has opened the doors for all the online interactions, online teaching, I'm sure we are going to benefit or take benefit out of you in the coming days. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And Professor AVIJIT or Actor AVIJIT, I don't have to say anything specific because, you know, whenever we meet, you leave a tremendous impact on all of us. I leave it entirely to you now. What more we have to learn from you? What exactly you're going to tell us? Very interesting things, very interesting stories, which help again the people who are present with us today. Sir, you're on the mute. Professor AVIJIT, you're on the mute, sir. Kindly unmute yourself. Yeah, thank you.
I must first say that I am not very good at surmising, concluding, and saying these are the learnings from it. But as I'll leave that open, I'm using that light. Thanks. But let me tell you the story. And like we say in theater, I will not force feed you, but I want you to think about it and find your solution. So to come back to the story I left you with, which was Mr. Tata gave us this challenge to make the sub $100 computer. We didn't realize till much later that this was a part of a strategy that the 1 lakh nano, the sub $100 computer were all going to be a part of Tata's great push. I was working with TCS, Tata Consultancy Service, the Innovation Lab, with Chinese software writers and with our hardware designers and writers. And of course, the chipset maker was Texas Instrumentation, which was in America. That was the first time that I was putting together a team from various parts of the globe and having mind-blowing conversations, which left me with lesser hair, with higher sugar, and with great amounts of anxiety. But we found that our bill of materials could never be brought down below $115. Motorola had worked on the same challenge earlier with TCS, and they had come to $135. So we were struggling still. You can reduce some memory, but how much can you reduce it to? It has to be effective. Somehow we brought it down to $105, but still not sub $100. While doing this, I was in South Africa on a mobile conference, and I was to give a talk, but while giving that, I heard the other speakers, and I realized what a terrible time the students in South Africa were going through, because they could not carry a computer to school, and nor did they have a computer in school because it would be stolen. I suddenly realized what we were working with and what we could possibly do. So we changed our whole description, took it to Mr. Tata and said that, sir, we are unable to make the sub $100 computer, but we can make the $100 computer where we take out the case cost of a laptop, but put it into a box, which we hook up to a television, and the television becomes the monitor. And we could make it at $97. But what it meant was that it didn't have the mobility. It didn't have the portability, but it gave people the way to dream forwards about the set-top box, which happened subsequently. I'm coming back, sorry. So that was that. And when I left this whole mobile world, and I decided that, now the time had come to really give back to society. I'll take one more diversion before coming to that. I was assigned a wonderful film to make by UNICEF and National Human Rights Commission on child abuse. This was the first time that a film on child abuse was to be made and shown on national television. I made the film, but I realized it was incomplete, because till you had an action line at the end of it, how did a child gain from it? We realized that it was impossible to get hold of a 3-digit number. Mr. Karthikeyan, who was then the head of NHRC, said, I'm sorry, Mr. Dutt, but we cannot help you in that matter. But the universe somehow conspires with you. And I was soon interviewing the chairman of MTNL, and I asked him, sir, can you give me a number? And he said, oh, yes, of course. I can't give you a 3-digit number, but I can give you a 4-digit number. 1098 became Childline, and Childline was launched. Today, Childline is across the country. Some places not very successful, some places extremely successful, but I'm happy that we started off with it. So coming back to that part of my life, when I realized that I'm going to step off the mobile industry, I was not going to give myself a salary from any company, but I had to pay myself. I decided that I needed to do some innovation, which I could take forward as a story. And that was the story that was going to sustain my company. The company is called Enable Advisory. It was really to enable people to do things. And long before, in 1999, I was driving with Mr. Sunil Dutt, the actor, on a peace mission, Hands Across the Borders. And in the night, we found ladies standing and waiting. And Dutt Sahab said to me, "Arey Bengali," he used to call me that, "Arey Bengali, itne sex workers gaon mein?" I said, "Dutt Sahab, I'm shocked that this is what you think. They're waiting for our headlights to pass so they can continue with what they were doing." But that story remained in my mind, that the ladies in the village had to hold back all day till darkness came to use nature, while men stand on the sides of the road and defecate. So I decided to make a toilet for women. But how do you make that? Because if you give a key, the panchayat leader is going to take it away, and soon she's not going to be able to use it again. If you give a combination, the husband will take it away. So I said, nothing short of putting a chip in the body, but who's going to allow us that? But we went and spoke to Mr. Nandan Nilekani, and UIDAI partnered us, and we built what I called Dignity, T for toilet, which was by taking the facts of the user, it would relate up to the Aadhaar cloud. The Aadhaar cloud gave the approval, it would come back and the solenoid would open and the lock would open. But how do you do that? The simple solution, of course, was fingerprint. But I remembered my father, who was working in tobacco, used to tell us that, you know, the soft soil of tobacco states of Andhra Pradesh, it was so soft that it would go into the ridges of the finger and there would be no fingerprint. So I asked UIDAI, what do you do? So they said, well, you'll have to find a solution. So I said, with my meager resources, let us do an investigation and research areas around us in Uttar Pradesh, in Rajasthan, and realized that women who were making 70, 80 chapatis a day had flour in the grooves, and soon they had nothing, just flat thumbprints. But China is marvelous with things like this, and they had these iris capture cameras, which didn't even require you to look into the camera, but just one glance was enough. And the iris impression does not change from birth to death. This was allowed by UIDAI, and we made a proof of concept where women could use it. Looking in, it would go to the Aadhaar cloud, and on a particularly cloudy day, it would take up to 27 seconds for the news to come back, for the solenoid to open. However, soon thereafter, Mr. Modi came along. This is 2014. This is subsequent to the changes in the Company Act, and CSR was suddenly becoming a reality. And Mr. Modi started what I consider to be a great movement, which was Swachh Bharat. And I realized that I had an option here of grabbing the low-hanging fruit, and we made toilets that work with 48,000 women, girl students all over North India. I think that's about enough, sir. I carry on with my stories once I
No,
start.
no, Professor Avijit, that's the, I must say, the hidden part which even we didn't know. I mean, this is such a remarkable contribution. You need to have a full 1 day of session with all of us, and I think we need to be picking up thread from every small thing that you're doing such big things. That's fantastic, fantastic. That's totally unheard of. Remarkable commitment to the cause, I must say, starting with the film on child abuse and reaching all this while pursuing. I know how tough it is to convince the world, convince the government, especially on totally unknown or very futuristic ideas. It is too very tough, and because it's your perseverance that you continued and you made them a success. And that's very remarkable. And I'm sure that's the biggest
Thank you so
lesson that
much.
all of us can learn. All of us can learn that once you are sure that you want to do this thing, okay, whatever be the competition, whatever be the reluctance, whatever be the negative feeds all around, if you are sincere into your effort, you certainly can do it. No, there's a big learning from all that Professor Avijit Saab has mentioned right now. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Kamal, Neet, now, would you be able to, now coming back to the management again, what exactly do you think? How do you really understand your customer better? How do you convince your customer better? How do you really make your customer depend on you, that you are the person he or she has been looking for? Would you like to say something onto that with some story?
Sure, why not? I think that's a relevant question, and I think a lot of times what we think of our customer, we assume that कि हमारा customer जो है, he is probably wanting this particular thing, and driven by those assumptions, we start working in that direction, and later what it turns out to be that the customer wanted something else.
Correct.
I think one of the things that what I would want to bring forward is that it's very crucial that as an individual, as a leader in the business, you should be spending time, with your customers, understanding what is it that they really want, vis-a-vis just assuming that this is something that they're probably looking at. Let me share something with you. A very interesting incident. So it was around 2 p.m. On a winter afternoon, and the doorbell is ringing constantly, and Pallavi knew it's her son Abhishek, at the door. Abhishek, 5 years old, Abhishek had returned from the school, and the moment Pallavi opened the door, she saw Abhishek wearing a bright white uniform with a maroon sweater. And like any mother or any father, when you have your son, the cute little ones, they're coming back, you would want to love them, hug them. So she got down on her knees and hugged Abhishek and said, "I'm so good to see you back." And she gave her a kiss. And Abhishek said, Mom, I really want to, tell you something. And she said, "Okay, why not, tell me?" And she gave her a glass of Nimbu Pani, and he had it. And he said, "You know what, Mom? Today I learned about traffic signals, and I want to share with you." And so the mother said, "Okay, go ahead." And he goes on. Abhishek goes on. Red means stop, and green means go, and yellow means wait and watch. So his mother said, "Okay, I think I'm glad you learned about the signals today. Let your father come back in the evening. I'm going to send you out. I'm going to send you with him out for a ride, so that you can actually see the signals and tell your dad that these are the rules that we follow." And so the dad comes back home in the evening, and little Abhishek is excited about his learnings that he had in the school during the day. And he says, Dad, we have to go out. And Dad says, I'm tired. And the mother says, "No, I have promised him that you're going to take him out to the market. You'll show him the signals. And by the way, also get some grocery ka saman." And he says that your real objective is to get the grocery stuff and not to take him out for the signals. Then, That's on one side, and the father agreed to take Abhishek out for a ride. So they go around, and little Abhishek looks at the red light and says, you know, dad, see, that's the red light my teacher showed me on the PPT, and that's the red light. You know, stop. So he stops. They move further. He sees the light as green, and probably they move ahead, and he says, you know, Abhishek says, you know, dad, let's go. So they move around, come back home. Now the first question that the mother ends up asking to Abhishek, and looking at both of them, she says, did you get the grocery? and husband laughed, and he said, your sole interest was to get the grocery and not the signals part. Another funny thing happened. The next day, they go out for a wedding, and they're returning from the wedding. It's about, you know, 12:30 midnight. And Abhishek said, you know, dad, I want to sit with you right next to you, and mama can sit at the back. And, you know, mama happily agreed. And they're driving, Abhishek's father is driving, and Abhishek notices that it's a red light, but the speed of the car has not slowed down. It's still, you know, pacing fast. And Abhishek says, Papa, it's red light. And Abhishek's father looks at him, gives him a look, and says, Beta, raat ko chalta hai, you know, raat ko chalta hai. And he drives past the red light. And Abhishek is confused. The following day, he goes to his class and says, ma'am, I have a confusion. And ma'am says, Batao, what is the confusion all about? And he looks around and says, ma'am, you only taught us the rules for the day, but not for the night. You taught us the rules for the day and not for the night. And the teacher was puzzled and probed further and got to know about the whole incident. And she laughed and she said, let this PTM come. I'm going to speak to your parents. Now, you know, I want to answer to what you asked. A lot of times, you know, leaders think that probably what we are doing is not being observed, right? And our team members, they follow similar patterns. And hence, if the leader driving the whole business does not get to the ground level as a role model, the others would also start assuming and start doing things following the leader. So being a role model is very crucial to understand your customers, not only at a business level, but also in personal life. Being a role model is pretty crucial. Yeah, so that's that for me, sir. Thank you.
No, it's very interesting and very beautiful way of telling us all. Yeah, what leader, every action or every inaction of the leader, how it is being seen and copied and even understood that day rules are different and possibly night rules are different. No, thank you so much, KAMALNEET. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
RITU, coming back to you. Again, the same question I mentioned to you also. How did you, you know, when you were struggling so very much, not only that you held on to it, how did you find the right people? How did you groom them? How did you put your confidence into them? You were never into any business earlier. And you just entered a ship which was sinking or which was almost about to sink. So how did you create a team? How did you handle that? That will be possibly learning for all of us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Bansal. So first of all, you know, I'll tell one story which kept me going. So my story, which I clung to it, was that there was a race of the frogs where all fat, thin, you know, all kind of frogs were there. So they had to reach some destination. So when they were all running, people standing on both sides, they were telling, oh, he's so fat, he's walking so slow, you know, how will he do that? You know, he's so small. So all were, you know, kind of giving up, listening, giving up, not losing confidence, losing hope. One little frog wins the race. So you know why? Because he was deaf and dumb. So he did not hear anyone. So I decided to become a deaf and dumb frog, who will not listen, who will not see what is happening right and left and center, like maybe like what my competitors are doing, who will do his own race, he will run his own race. This was my first story which I relied myself on. Then how I trained my team. So I called, I try to, in 7 minutes, so I try to tell few stories starting from ABCD. So first A story, which I call aeroplane story. So, when I saw in the beginning that my team was not really working, they were doing a lot of wastage, we were losing, they were not careful, they were not diligent. So I was very upset one day. I thought, what should I do? So I was a person who did not know how to scold people. And secondly, also, I had a lot of insecurities as well, that if I scold, they will go. Whatever I say, when little I say, they will go, then who will run the plant? So I was in that state of confusion. One day I went to my factory and I called the team members, but I did not know what to do. So then suddenly, 4 lines from one book, The Human Revolution, that book, something I remember. And I asked them, have you ever been to aeroplane, flown in an aeroplane? Some said yes, some said no. So I said, what an aeroplane needs when he is taking off. Some said energy, fuel, power, pilot, engine, whatever anybody could think of, this said. I said, if they get all these things, what will happen? He said, it will fly very high, it will take off very well. I said, if they don't get that, the aeroplane doesn't get that, what will happen? They said, then it will crash. I said, yes, our industry is also in that stage. It's taking off. And you all are the power, fuel, energy, pilot, everything. So if you want to see it flying high, you give your best. If you want to see it crashing, it's fine. It's your industry. So the way you want to treat, please treat it. And I believed it was just 3-4 minutes conversation I had with them. And after that, I saw tremendous change in them. So what I learned out of this is that when people feel they belong to it, the thing that they're working belongs to them, their attitude changes. When they think they are doing it for somebody else, just for their salary's sake, their attitude is very different. So that belongingness was first thing which I created through this aeroplane story. Second, I call it bio story. Why I call it bio story? That during COVID times, my 40 team members got stuck in my factory. So when suddenly Prime Minister Modi declared a lockdown in March 20. So, and as the time passed, they got very, very upset. They were feeling lonely, they were missing out their families, and they did not know what to do. So we started campaign of Zoom meetings every alternate day. And these alternate days, I started telling them stories. I started sharing how Einstein, how Edison, how Nelson Mandela, 27 years of imprisonment, and how he became. So all this, even Newton, all these people, how what wonders they created, even during their crisis. And those stories did the real job, So I just told them, I said, let's make this the best period of our life. And after this lockdown gets over, let's surprise the whole world. Let them feel, oh, what we could create. People were crying, they were lying, they were waiting. So we did wonders in this time. So that what we did in out of the waste materials in our factory, we started doing a lot of R&D. And by the time actually COVID got over, we created biodegradable, synthetic leather, which was never existing, globally. So this was our research which we could do just because, because of the inspiring stories, we shared, we connected with each other. So this is second, how I train. And another one, the blue collared employees also. So I thought now we need to connect to them also. They also need to get inspired. They also need to understand, because mostly what I saw, everybody would say, oh, I'm working for 10 years. This doesn't happen. I'm into this industry for 25 years. This doesn't happen. So they were hopeless and disempowered. They thought things work only like this, and if it's not working, it will never work. So I thought that there's a need to change the mindset first. So I started having events, gathering. I would be there. So then I would share again stories. So one story of elephant, how when in a circus he's tied down by a small rope. So I asked him why he's not able to break. You think he's not powerful enough? They said, no, he's very powerful. I said, why he's not able to break rope? So then, we ultimately got down that how as a baby elephant, when he's tied by a chain and he tries to break it, so he bleeds, he gets hurt, he's not able to, and he, that stays with his mind and he thinks he can never do it because he couldn't do it at then, so he cannot do it now. I said, you are like that elephant. You're very powerful. You have grown up. You have wonderful mind and physical bodies. You can do so much. But because you couldn't do once or twice or thrice, you think you can never do it. So they understood. They also started changing. So another last story I'll share, how I trained my people to select the right people. So this story is even in my book, A Story Can Change Your Life. So one of my very senior guys sent him to take an interview of somebody who was working with some industry for 15 years. And I thought he would be a very good resource. So I sent him, I said, please take the interview. So when he came back, he said, no, he doesn't know anything. I said, doesn't know anything? How it's possible? 15 years of, So he said, no, he doesn't know PU, he doesn't know this. He used 3 4 technical terms. So I said, okay, fine, he has come all the way. So let me also meet and see. So when I went to see him, I went with a mind to learn. So what your industry does, when this kind of issue comes, because whatever issues we were facing, I started asking questions on that with the mind to learn. And I started speaking in very straight Hindi, his language, and he became very comfortable. He started telling what do they do. And then I called that guy, my senior person. I told him to sit down there. I said, I thought, let him observe, let him see, how interview is taken. I observed when he came, after some time he was sitting like this. So I got it that, he's sitting with an attitude. So he was judging him, right? And he's not learning, he's not asking, he was judging. So when the interview got over, so I asked him, I said, his name is Sanjeev. I said, Sanjeev, your mother cooks very good rajma, right? He said, yes. I said, how much sodium chloride your mother puts? He said, what? So I said, she's a good cook. So he said, what sodium? I said, namak, kitna dalti? Kitne grams dalti? He said, no, she does it by average. She knows how much to put. She does do that experience. I said, same as this guy. He has experience, but he doesn't know sodium chloride. He doesn't know grammage, but he cooks very wonderful rajma. So we need to understand person's potential, and we need to interact in his language to take out his potential. Otherwise he wouldn't understand sodium chloride. Your mother will not understand. So he understood. So our pattern of taking interviews changed. So this is how I trained. I have many, many stories. This is few I could share in given time. Yeah.
No, fantastic, Ritu. You seem to have been very God gifted with a very innovative and positive way of thinking. And please carry on. It will be a pleasure seeing you move up and be more successful in your life. Yeah, it's a pleasure. And Professor Tina and Professor Praveen, can I request you to take the questions? Already we have 90 minutes already over, but I'll request the panelists to be with us for some of the questions. Yeah.
Right, sir. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for sharing your wonderful stories with all of us. And I request all of you to address a few questions. So there's one question that students have reached out to us. They feel that the art of storytelling comes from experience. You've all had wonderful life experiences, some good, some bad. Since they are youngsters, they're learning, in their work experiences. And how can they leverage the power of storytelling? Should they be using it while answering a recruiter's question that tell me about yourself? Or what is it that they should be using it for when they start off their careers? So I would request probably each one of you to give your take and advice to these students.
Can I go
how
first?
They can, yeah. Yes, please.
Thank you, ma'am, for your question. I think practically speaking, a story should be used only when it is required. When somebody says, please tell us about yourself, I don't think it is apt to tell a story at that time. Basically, you'll talk about yourself. But when the question comes to something more intricate, or something about some experience of life, or what is your mantra, or what is your leadership model, or how do you plan to do this ahead? Definitely an anecdote, which is a quick anecdote, can be used. Something where you had a setback and then you bounced back. That is the best kind of story, which I feel, I'm sure Ritu and Rituji and Kamalneet ji will agree, that when everybody likes to talk about and listen to stories where challenges are. AVIJIT ji also gave us, challenges at a very deeper societal level, which he could overcome with his team. So it's all about tackling challenges, and I'm sure that then you can use that story to your advantage, and you can even rehearse your stories before going into an interview or an interaction. As a speaker, when I go on stage, I have in mind that these 2 or 3 stories I'm going to use today. Today also, I knew that I'm going to use this Dudu one and the distracted lady one and a couple of others. So you prepare a structure to your input, and then you tell your story. Sometimes a spontaneous story can also do when you become a more experienced orator, or when you're more experienced in life also, you can come up with a story on the spur of a moment also. That's mine.
Right, thank you. Thank you. May I request Mr. Dutt, if you could.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think Vivek has done an excellent job in really surmising it. However, do look at using the story to display your innovations and to really file away all opposition. Carry the team with the story. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Kamalneet.
So I think both Vivek and Mr. Dutt, they have kind of covered up something, but then I would want to pick up one particular point. So let's say when probably you are hiring, so when I do hiring, I do sit for the final round when I really want to know who is coming on board, right? So one of the question is, every student who sits on for an interview knows that कि मेरे से पूछा जाएगा, tell me something about yourself, right? And they come in very prepared for that, and they'll start, my name is this, tuck, and they'll probably go on. The next one, when you, that I really ask is that, why? Because we work with kids, and I do ask that, why do you want to work with kids? It's not easy. As professors, I'm very sure they'll agree that it's not easy to work with kids, and it's not. Let's be honest about that. But it's equally fun. And at that moment, some of them, I remember, the ones that I hired at least, I remember that they had some brief story that they shared as to how something happened when they were kids that impacted them in some way, and they want to make a difference to the kids. So I think given the fact that if the student can share a story as Vivek ji said, that at the right time, at the right time, if a story can be brought to the table, that makes a tremendous difference. And yes, for all the kids out there, I think if you, I picked up another point what was being mentioned. You can be prepared at times, but sometimes, something strikes you in the moment and you feel like, yeah, this is something that I would want to probably share out. I can tell you one thing that, everybody's seasoned out here. As an interviewer, you can see through the child कि वाकई दिल से बोल रहा है या सिर्फ ऐसे ही बोली जा रहा है, so you're able to get through, right? So, and I think as a person who is giving the interview, I think sometimes bringing something from your heart and being straight about it does help. Yeah. So that's my take.
Right. Thank you, Kamalneet ji. Yes, Miss Ritu.
Yeah. Hi. So I think when somebody says introduce yourself, so I think there can be a very beautiful story who you are. It's not about your name or anything that's on your CV. You don't need to again and again explain so much. Like my daughter, who is a structural engineer, so she was asked why who she is and what. She told a very beautiful story that how when she used to go to a place where there was an ocean and there were buildings on top of it or in the middle of it, or some rivers. So she would always wonder, how come, So this is how it created who she is, why she is what she is. Or even the little one, she said, I read somewhere, my younger one is a doctor. So whenever she has written a book also, she's just 22. So, she was asked in one of the UN sessions she was interacting with, she was asked why she's a doctor. Then she said, she read one line somewhere, somebody said, I want to get this world rid of misery. And I decided I want to get this world rid of misery. So you can narrate something, very deep, as Vivek ji said, So if it is intricate and how, what is your vision through that, I think we can share our vision through that story. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am. My question is actually coming from a quote. The quote says, the purpose of a storyteller is not to tell you how to think, but to give you questions to think upon. So I request all the panelists if they could tell our students what question or what areas they should think upon to become successful, not only professionally, but personally as well. KAMALNEET, sir, we can start from you since you're already working with kids.
Sure. So let me answer this by sharing another story. So I was with the grade 9th kids and I was talking to them about, because you're talking about success, so let me relate a story from that angle. And the theme of that particular day, that workshop was, success. What does success really mean, right? And this is, by the way, a very powerful one for each one of us. If you really, you dwell on the question as to what does success mean to you, right? So a lot of times there is a bifurcation between, personal success and universal success. And I asked these kids as to, how would you define success? And I was amazed by the answers that they gave. And one of the boys sitting at the back said, the day I have that BMW, some model he spoke about, the day I have that, I'll be probably successful. I said, okay. And I asked another student as to, how would you define success? So maybe this girl got influenced by this boy, and she said, she took some name. मुझे आज भी वो याद है कि उसने कोई ऐसा नाम लिया जो मुझे register ही नहीं हुआ. She took some Italian name, and she said, the day I'm carrying that bag, I don't know how many, the bag is basic handbag. It's worth lakhs or something. And she said, जब मेरे पास वो होगा तो I'll probably be, successful. And then kids went around talking about the day I have, a big house and this and that and all of that. And that really got me thinking that society, knowingly or unknowingly, has conditioned us to think about success in a very universal way, right? And I think it's time that we break the monotony and we define personal success vis-a-vis universal success. So for me, I love reading. So for me, if I get to spend about an hour a day reading books, which I do spend a lot of time reading, for me, it feels successful because I'm able to give time to something that I really cherish, right? So that's probably one. So everybody, I think the takeaway is that write down and define what success means to you at a very personal and deeper level. Yeah, that's that.
Great, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Vivek, sir, if you would like to take this question.
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. No, I think it's very important to realize that the journey of life is full of various things. So the question I need to ask in my life is that, why am I here? What is my purpose? Is that purpose in my mind all the time while I'm working? Sometimes it cannot be because I'm into minute work or details. But if I have that bigger picture in mind, if I know the answer, and if I'm determined to make an impact, then I can do it. So the thing is to pick up things and stay inspired, whether you are listening to speakers, whether you are learning from life itself. Experiences of your own life are probably the biggest learnings. And some people pick up these things much better than others. So the saint said that the sun shines equally on everybody. but the diamond and the charcoal, they treat it differently. And that sunlight cannot be reflected by the charcoal. And it is absorbed by the charcoal, whereas reflected by the diamond. So everybody is different. Learnings are different. Takeaways are different. So we have to be receptive. That's the goal. If you are receptive, then you'll win the battle of life. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you so much, sir.
Maybe we can go
Ritu
to
ma'am.
next questions, because one question. I think many questions are there.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Sure. There are more questions. Since many of you spoke about mentoring and inspirational, influence of people in your life, if you could share that, who has been your mentors or inspirational person in your lives, if all of you could share something that you take away from your mentors.
I can share, Dr. Daisaku Ikeda is my mentor. Although I believe there are many mentors, you learn from them, many gurus, but I would like to mention one right now. So he, why he's my mentor? He's a Buddhist, he's a philosopher from Japan. So why is my mentor? Because I actually got inspiration, motivation, learning from him. Whatever I am today, it's just because of him. Why? His life journey was so tremendous that when he was, 19 years old, there was World War II, and his house was war raided. His brother got killed in war, and he had tuberculosis. So doctor said he wouldn't be able to survive beyond 30. So even in those circumstances, how, he would go to the seashore when he would have fever 104 and, collect seaweeds to survive his family. And, he, at that time he wrote one poem. He said, I blaze with hope through the raging waves, though I may be poorly clad, though people might ridicule me or mock at me, I will endure with fortitude. Just watch me succeed. So this poem always stayed with me. I said it in those circumstances when he had all kind of threats in terms of physical, financial, family, he couldn't go to college. So that time he said, I blaze with hope. And he's telling, watch me succeed. So, and he did. Today is 90 plus and he's got more than 300 doctorates. He couldn't study. He couldn't go to college. He has written so many books. He is healthy and everything is God. So I always used to believe if he could do it, why not I? So I used to feel I can't cut sorry figure and say I couldn't do it. I'm sorry. He's my mentor, so I have to really, really be in his shoes, learn from him, and follow him to the core. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, Mr. Dutt, Mr. ATRAY, your mentors, if you would like to share. Yeah.
We are getting on in hours, and these are very, very deep questions. If you really want me to be genuine, it would take quite a bit of time to explain. But my grandfather and Mahatma Gandhi and Acharya Buddharakita Thera, a Buddhist monk where I had taken sannyas for some time, are my three jewels, so to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. My idols have changed over the years. They could have been cricketers earlier. They could have been successful officers later. Now I too, like Ritu ji and AVIJIT ji, would like to mention Paramahansa Yogananda, author of the Autobiography of a Yogi. He inspires me endlessly, and his work, his teachings, his life, his book, Autobiography of a Yogi, his writings. And to lighten the mood a little, the share which I use nowadays, which applies to me and also probably to many of us, is this. And it's not by me, it's by someone else, but it is this. फितूर होते हैं जिंदगी में हर दौर में जुदा जुदा. फितूर होते हैं जिंदगी में हर दौर में जुदा जुदा. पहले खिलौने, फिर इश्क, फिर पैसा, फिर खुदा खुदा. So what we do is to go through this transition. We love toys, then we love love, then we love Esa, and then we love God. Ultimately, after all, the Tokren. So if we can make friends with the Lord or the Almighty or our inner self, or realize that the goal of life is actually that inner peace or that self-realization a little earlier than normally, instead of waiting for it in the fourth phase, then perhaps life becomes easier. So that is what I've learned. Had I read the autobiography of a yogi, or whatever path you follow, your scriptures, your spiritual learnings, I would have had a better time of it in my earlier life. Now I'm probably, I don't want to sound too pompous, but I'm probably having the best time of my life because of this balance that I'm able to bring out. Thank you.
Thank you. Beautiful. Yes, Mr. KAMALNEET.
So for me, at a very personal level, I see my late grandfather as one of the biggest role models, and followed by my parents. And I am a product of not just biologically, but in terms of thoughts, values, traditions. How I have shaped up is largely because of my parents. And I'm so inspired by them that I wrote a book on parenting dedicated to them. And on a professional note, I love the work of Robin Sharma. His books have influenced me a lot. Then Dr. Wayne Dyer and Tony Robbins, and so those are the people on the professional front. And a poem that more than the author of the poem in itself became an inspiration, which was, two roads diverge in a wood, and I took the less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. So that poem in itself has, touched me at a very deeper level. So that's
yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone. Sir, I think
yeah. One small thing. There's a Professor Chanchal. There's a question from him. So since a senior professor, so let's answer that question. Then possibly we could take leave from the
Yes. So everyone, there's a question from Professor Chanchal Mukherjee, and the question is there any special technique of storytelling for MBA students in the classroom, or they just have to be simple and lucid? If one of you could answer that.
I'll probably read that, if I may. So storytelling is a gigantic subject, and to probably understand this a little more, I would recommend that the students can pick up a book called The Hero's Journey by Joseph Campbell, and that's a full-fledged book on, and I think we have Mr. Dutt with us. So a lot of movies, a lot of films, a lot of serials, a lot of soap, जो रात वाले हमारे सास बहू वाले serial हैं, a lot of them are derived from the story crafting by Joseph Campbell, and the book is called The Hero's Journey. So yeah, I think the resource should help.
Right.
Thank you so much. It has been a lot of time, although we had tried that initially. We thought we'll be able to close it in about 80 minutes or say like that, but like every time we are almost there for 2 hours. So I thank everybody. First of all, I thank all the people who have been with us all this while. Even right now, there are about 280 people with us at this stage also. So thank you very much, all the people who have been with us. I'm sure we have been able to help you maybe in a very small way to solve a couple of issues in your mind in which you're facing in every day. And we would continue to be bringing whatever new things we can possibly to add to your learning in the coming days, in the coming months. And my very grateful thanks to our own Professor AVIJIT Dutt, my own VIVEK ATRAY, and good friends KAMALNEET and RITU. We will continue to be learning from them. Tremendous stories of courage, tremendous stories of coming out of the difficulties. This is what the students of today need. And now I repeat, because of the online convenience that's being offered, earlier all our mentoring meetings were happening in the physical mode. Okay, the mentors, Professor Dutt remembers, mentors would either come to the campus or will they call the students to their offices. So now when this pandemic came, so we were at a loss because we wanted mentoring to continue in a very big way. And would you believe, in the last about 20 months of, because the pandemic happened, we were amidst the exams. So immediately thereafter, when we started the mentoring, about 460 meetings have happened with the mentors in the last 20 months. Mentors have a lot of time now. Okay, and students are available to them at their convenience. And so this is a new way of learning and you have connecting with the mentors. So I would request, in that connection, we will formally request everybody to join the bandwagon of AVIJIT DUTT and be students' mentors at our place in the coming days. I'm sure we have a lot to learn and you are in the journey of giving back. So I always say, I mean, that's what I have taken now. There are so many ways of nation building, but we strongly feel every day that right education is the best way of nation building. And in that process, in that exercise, in that journey, I seek the help of each one of you.
Totally,
Thank
sir.
you so very much.
Thank you so much.
With you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us, sir. It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope that the people who have been listening in have drawn some inspiration from it, even if it be one sentence. I would think it's an evening well spent.
Yeah, no, certainly, sir. At least I have learned a lot. I'm sure others too have.
So let's all have 300 new followers after this call on Instagram.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. All the very best.
Extremely
Bye-bye.
grateful. Thank you, Professor Tina, and thank you, Praveen. Thank you so very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.